Okay, children, today I'll be taking up the chapter Packing, Class 9 by Jerome K. Jerome. Jerome K. Jerome was an American writer. His full name was Jerome Klapka Jerome, and he was an English writer and humorist, best known for his comic travelogue Three Men in a Boat. And Three Men on the Bumble is a sequel to Three Men in a Boat. So this chapter, what is comic travelogue? Very important thing. This is a kind of genre. This under this category comes those novel which are written or has the content of travel, where incidents are related to travel, but that traveling element or that concept of travel which is being taken up, or the construction of narrative of travel that is being taken up, is in a comic, is a comic representation. The genre to which the chapter Packing belongs is a comedy. It is a first person narrative. First person narrative because the very starting line of the chapter is I said I'd pack. So here the sentence, in the sentence, the very first word, I said I'd pack, this I is the first person, and it shows that the whole text is going to be a first person narrative. The title Packing itself speaks that the narrative is going to be something related to travel. As I've always talked to you, that title gives you a glimpse of what the content is all about. And the other thing that is to be taken care of is that the narrator is the author himself. Now, before getting into the chapter, the most important thing is that the writer here, the author, the narrator, he boasts of his packing techniques, which leads to a series of comic mishappenings. Okay. Other characters are George and Harris. And all the incidents that are narrated in the text are quite funny. And we have another important character, Montmorency. Okay, and it is a dog. So let's start the chapter. Packing. I said I'd pack. I'd rather pride myself on my packing. He's saying that I am proud of my packing techniques. Packing is one of those many things that I feel I know more about than any other person living. He's boasting of his packing techniques. He says that packing is one of those many things that he has got full control over it than any other living being on this earth, than any other human existence in this earth. It surprises me myself sometimes how many such things there are. I impressed the fact upon George and Harris and told them that they had better leave the whole matter entirely to me. Now he is speaking to his friends, George and Harris, and he says that I told them that it would be a better option and a better choice to leave the whole packing procedure on his shoulders. They fell into the suggestion with a readiness that had something uncanny about it. and they very readily accepted the offer. And it was very strange the way they behaved. George spread himself over the easy chair and Harris cocked his legs on the table. And now these two persons, as soon as they heard that the writer is saying that you should keep yourself out from this whole concept of packing, these two friends, Harris and George, they just take their respective seats and comfortably and makes themselves comfortable on their particular seats. This was hardly what I intended. Now, the writer is saying that I didn't intend it to say this. When I asked them to stay away from the job, or it's not an easy job for George and Harris, that doesn't mean that I'll be doing the whole packing. What I had meant, of course, was that I should boss the job. So what was the true intention of the author? He wanted to boss the job. He just wanted to preside over it. He just wanted to look over it. Okay. He didn't want it to work. But his friends, they took it in some other way. And they just took their comfortable positions and left the whole field open for the author to continue with its packing talent. And that Harris and George should potter out about under my direction. And he wanted that George and Harris should work under his instructions. I pushing them aside every now and then with, oh, you, here, let me do it. There you are, simple enough, really teaching them, as you might say. He just wanted to instruct them. And just by just touching things here and there, by just adjusting one or two bit or bat here and there, he just wanted to instruct the job. They're taking it in the way they did irritated me. He says that the way they took the whole word or thought of mine was quite irritating. There is nothing does irritate me more than seeing other people sitting about doing nothing when I'm working. And he says that it is quite irritating for him to see that he's working and others are looking at him. I lived with a man once who used to make me mad that way. Now he is recalling one of those incidents where he was totally in a maddening position where a man used to live with him and he used to feel immense pleasure and happiness when he used to see author working alone. He would loll on the sofa and watch me doing things by the hour together. He said it did him real good to look on at me messing about. And he says that no, it was not something good. He used to just look at me and I used to get confused, nervous, and all things used to be a mess. Now I am not like that. I can't sit still and see another man slaving and working. Now he says that no, I'm not like that man who used to stay with me. I'm but generous. I cannot see someone working in front of me and I cannot sit idly. I want to get up and superintendent and tell him what to do. It is my energetic nature. I can't help it. Now he's saying that it's all in my blood and vein. It's my energetic nature that I cannot sit idly in front of someone. It is in my nature, in my blood, to assist someone, to superintend the issues. However, I did not say anything but started the packing. Now he says that no, that I just refused to say anything. I started with the work of packing. It seemed a longer job than I had thought it was going to be. Now he says that it was quite a long job, okay, which he was intended or planning to do than he thought, and it was going to be, but I got the bag finished at last and sat on it and strapped. Now he says that it was not an easy task to pack the whole thing. But finally he says that finally I did the whole packing work, and the bag was so much filled with things that he had to sit on the bag and then strap it. Aren't you going to put the boots in? Harris popped up and said, that aren't you going to put the boots in? I looked and I looked around and found I had forgotten them. And I looked, that's just like Harris. He couldn't have said a word until I'd got the bag shut and strapped, of course. Now he says that it's just like Harris. Harris should have informed him while he was doing the packing that that the boot is left unpacked. And George left. One of those irritating, senseless laughs of his, and he says that his laugh was very senseless. They do make me so wild. I opened the bag and packed the boots in, and then just as I was going to close it, a horrible idea occurred to me. I had packed my toothbrush. Had I packed my toothbrush? I don't know how it is, but I never do know whether I have packed my toothbrush or not. And he says that I become quite irritated with his smiles, with his smile, with the laughing of with George laughing. They do make me wild. He says that I got irritated. They make me wild. And he said that I again opened the bag and packed the boot in. And then suddenly a thought struck his mind. He said that it was very horrible thought. And what was it? Had I packed my toothbrush? And he says that I didn't had any clue whether I had packed my bags or not. And he says, but I never do know whether I have packed my toothbrush or not. My toothbrush is a thing that haunts me when I am traveling. Now he says that it is the most ferocious thing that the writer cannot assume or hope or afford to leave it behind, and makes my life misery. And he says that whenever I leave my toothbrush, it makes my life miserable. Okay, now he says that okay, so he was just worried with the thought that whether he has packed his toothbrush or not. My toothbrush is a thing, okay, that haunts him. I dream that I haven't packed it, and he had those dreams, wild dreams, that he has not packed it, and wake up in the cold perspiration and get out of bed and hunt for it. And whenever he used to get a bad thought that he has not packed his toothbrush, he used to perspire and sweat, and he used to just get out of his bed and look for whether he has packed his toothbrush or not. And in the morning, I pack it before I have used it and have to unpack again to get it. Now he says that in the morning, the very first thing I do before using is that to pack the brush. And then I pack the brush and have to unpack again to get it. And he again unpacks it in order to get the toothbrush and use it. And it is always the last thing I turn out of the bag. And he says that it is always last thing that I put inside the bag. And then I repack and forget it. And he says that, and again I do the repacking, and again I have to rush upstairs to it at the last moment and carry it to the railway station wrapped up in pocket handkerchief. And this closing, unpacking, packing, unpacking, the whole process finally makes him carry his toothbrush wrapped in a handkerchief and kept in his pocket. Of course, I had to turn every mortal thing out now, and of course, I could not find it. Now he says that I just took out everything, and I was looking madly where my toothbrush was it, but I couldn't find it. I rummaged the things up into much the same state that day. And he carelessly just put all the things here and there, and he's in the same state must have been before the world was created and when chaos reigned. Now he is saying that the situation which existed was the same as the situation that prevailed, that chaotic situation that prevailed before the God created this world. Okay. Of course, I found George and Harris 18 times over, but I couldn't find my own. Now he says that I find George and Harris toothbrush plenty of times, but I could not get mine. I put the things back on one by one and held everything up and shook it. Then I found it inside a boot I repacked once again. Now he says that after doing all efforts, finally he saw his toothbrush inside that boot, and he became relaxed and he repacked it once more. When I had finished, George asked if the soap was in. Now, George asks whether he has kept the soap in or not. I said I didn't care a hang whether the soap was in or whether it wasn't. Now he says that I am damn least bother whether the soap is inside a bag, because he says that that is not the most important thing for me. For the author, the most important thing was his toothbrush. It wasn't, and I slammed the bag shut and strapped it and found that I had packed my spectacles in it. And second time, what mistake he did? He packed his spectacles, and again he reopened it, and he got up, and it got up shut up finally at 10:05 p.m. And then there remained the hampers to do. Harris said that we should be wanting to start in less than 12 hours time, and thought that he and George had better to do the rest. And I agreed and sat down, and they had to go. Now Harris said that he and George would together pack the whole hampers, and he would just sit down. And the writer agrees to it. They began in the light-hearted spirit, evidently intending to show me how to do it. But they were making fun. Okay, they were feeling very amused. They were feeling very happy in teasing the writer. Okay, I made no comment. Writer said that I didn't thought it worth commenting on it. I only waited. With the exception of George, Harris is the worst packer in this world. Now he says that Harris is not at all a good packer. And I looked at the piles of plates and cups and kettles and bottles and jars and pies and stoves and cakes and tomatoes, etc. Now he says that, oh God, the table was full of all these things, and felt that the thing would soon become exciting. And when he saw the whole mess on the table, he says that now the journey is going to be quite comfortable and exciting. It did. And actually, it did. They started with breaking a cup. That was the first thing they did. Now he says that it was the first and the foremost thing which they did. And what they did was they started with the breaking of a cup. That was the first thing they did. They did that just to show you that what they could do and to get you interested. And they started their packing with the breaking of the cup, and it was an act which they committed so that they could so that interest could be generated. Then Harris packed the strawberry jam on top of a tomato, squashed it. And now Harris, what did he pack? The strawberry jam on the top of a tomato, and tomato was squashed. And they had to pick out the tomato with the teaspoon. And they have to just pick it out, tomato with the teaspoon. And then it was George's turn, and he trod on the butter. And it was now George's turn. He just put his leg on the butter. I didn't say anything, but I came over and sat on the edge of the table and watched. Now the writer is saying that I didn't say anything. I just came and sat on the edge of the table. It irritated them more than anything, and I could have said. Now it is time for George and Harris to get irritated, because author was sitting at the edge of the table and was observing them very carefully. Initially, the writer used to get irritated when that man living with him used to sit on the sofa and used to watch him carefully. I felt that it made them nervous and excited. And they became quite nervous. And they stepped on things and put things behind them, and then couldn't find them when they wanted them. Now they all just created a chaos, a mess. Okay, they were just putting things here and there, and when it was the right time to take out the things, they could not find it where they have kept it. And the things become quite messy. And they packed the pies at the bottom and put heavy things on top and smashed the pies. And what they did it, they just put the pies at the bottom, and on the top they put all the heavy items. They upset salt over everything. They just sprinkle salt on everything. And as for the butter, I knew saw two men do more with 1 and 2 pence worth of butter in my whole life than they did. And he says that it was quite surprising, amazing to find out that a butter, okay, which just cost 1 and 2 pence, had such a huge capacity of turning them round and round. After George had got it off his slipper, they tried to put it in the kettle. And what did they try to do? They just tried to get over that butter and to take it and keep it on in the kettle. It wouldn't go in, and what was in wouldn't come out. And they says that it won't get inside. And what would happen if it doesn't come out? It wouldn't go in. Okay, they said scrap it out at last and put it down on the chair. And he says that just scrap it out, remove it from there and put it on the chair. And Harris sat on it and it stuck to him, and they went looking for it all over the room. Now that on that butter, Harris sat down and it stuck to his bottom, and everyone was looking for that butter. I'll take my oath, I put it down on that chair, and George staring at empty seat. And he says that I put down that chair and put down on that chair, and George staring at the empty seat, and Harris sat on that chair. I saw you do it myself not a minute ago, said Harris. Now Harris says that I saw you, George, that you kept the butter here, but it is not here. Then they started round the room again looking for it. Then they met again in the center and stared at one another. Now they were just looking for where the butter has been kept throughout the room, and when they reached at the center, they were looking at each other's face. Most extraordinary thing I ever heard of, said George. And George says that it was the most extraordinary thing. So mysterious, said Harris. Then George got around at the back of Harris and saw it. And then George, he got up and he saw that the butter was stuck at the butt of George. At the back of Harris. Why? Here it is all the time, he exclaimed indignantly. But why it's here? Where? Cried Harris, spinning around. And stand still, can't you, roared George, flying after him. Now he was just moving round and round after him in order to take out that butter from his butt. So he angrily asked him to stand at a place, and they got it off and packed it in the teapot. And they just took the butter out and packed it in the teapot. Montmorency was in it all, of course. Now, the next fourth character he gets inside. It is Montmorency. Morency is a dog. Okay. Montmorency's ambition in life is to get in the way and be sworn at. Now he says that his main ambition is to do all rubbish things and to get scolding. If he can squirm in everywhere where he particularly is not wanted and be a perfect nuisance and mark people mad and have things thrown at his head, then he feels his day has not been wasted. Now it's said that how the dog takes up the whole day. It's been said that it was the whole sole ambition, purpose of Morency's life, that to cause destruction. So what he used to do, that he used to just roam in all those places where he was not at all wanted and create nuisance until unless people threw things at him, and he feels, and then also then only he felt that the day was accomplished or it was not wasted. To get somebody to stumble over him and curse him steadily for an hour is his highest aim and object, and his main aim and object is that to do some nuisance and to get scolding from others. And when he has succeeded in accomplishing this, his conceit becomes quite unbearable. And when he finds that he has succeeded in it, his pride, he stands out in pride. He feels very proud that, yes, I have made these human beings cry a lot. He came and sat down on things just when they were wanted to be packed. And he labored under the fixed belief that whenever Harris or George reached out their hand for anything, it was his cold, damp nose that they wanted. And he just made up his plan and mood that yes, I have to do some monstrous thing. And whenever these George and Harris was to raise their hands or stretch their hands to get something, it was his wet nose, and he knew that something they were going to give it. He put his leg into the jam and he worried the teaspoons, and he pretended that lemons were rats and got into the hamper and killed 3 of them before Harris could land him with the frying pan. Now what he did, he just put his leg into the jam bottle, okay, and he worried the teaspoons, and he pretended that the lemons were rats, and he got into the hamper and killed 3 of them before Harris took a frying pan and hit him. Harris said, I encouraged him. I don't encourage him. Harris now complains that the author is encouraging Montmorency, a dog like this that doesn't want any encouragement. Now the author says that no, it's the natural habit of a dog to behave in this way, so they do not need anyone's encouragement. It's the natural original sin that is born in him that makes him do things like that. Now the writer says that no, these are innate qualities, these are built-in qualities which they cannot part with. The packing was done at 12:50, and Harris sat on the big hamper and said he hoped nothing would be found broken. Now by 12:50 they finished the packing, and Harris, he sat on the hamper and he hoped that nothing is broken. George said that if anything was broken, it was broken, which reflection seemed to comfort him. Now George was more practical in his thought, and he says that okay, it's just a loss, let it be a loss. Okay, but now they all are now getting ready to take up a nap. Okay, so they all just went to the bed. We were all ready for bed. Harris was to sleep with us that night, and we went upstairs. And Harris was to stay with them, so they went upstairs. We tossed out for beds, and Harris said to sleep with me. He said, do you prefer the inside or the outside, Jay? Now he's asking them whether you want to sleep inside the bed or outside the bed. I said, I generally prefer to sleep inside the bed. Harris said it was good. It was odd. George said, what time shall I wake you fellows? And George came and said that, at what time do you want me to wake you all? Harris said 7. And the author is saying, no, 6, because I wanted to write some letters. He wanted to get up early so that he could write some letters. Harris and I had a bit of row over it, and both of these people, they had just a struggle, a stiff of war among themselves, but at last split the difference and said 6:30, and at last they agreed at 6:30 a.m. Wake us at 6:30, George said. George made no answer, and while they were just fighting, they were indulged in that whole blame game. George, no one found any answer as he was off to sleep. So we placed the bath where could tumble into it on getting out in the morning, and went to the bed. So just to get the bath near them so that he could just tumble onto it, and in the morning while getting out of the bed, and went to bed ourselves. And then after doing this they just went back to their bed. So children, you saw that in this chapter, Packing, how Jerome is talking about one of the funny packing incidents which he faced with his friends. Okay, so with this, I'm ending my topic.